The Lord be with you. A reading from the Holy Gospel according to Luke. As Jesus continued his journey to Jerusalem, he traveled through Samaria and Galilee. As he was entering a village, 10 lepers met him. They stood at a distance from him, raised their voices, saying, "Jesus, Master, have pity on us." And when he saw them, he said, "Go show yourselves to the priests." As they were going, they were cleansed, and one of them, realizing he had been healed, returned, glorifying God in a loud voice, and he fell at the feet of Jesus and thanked him. He was a Samaritan. Jesus said in reply, "10 were cleansed, were they not? Where are the other 9? Has none but this foreigner returned to give thanks to God?" Then he said to him, "Stand up and go. Your faith has saved you." The Gospel of the Lord.
Praise you, Lord.
Every once in a while, you have one of those Gospels that if you're going to give a homily or reflection, it's a no-brainer. And this happens to be one of those Gospels. And if you were paying attention to the Gospel, there were 10 lepers or outcasts. They asked Jesus to heal them. He did. One returned. And I've got to tell you that if I came up to any of you and said, "Give me your reflection," you'd be able to do it. And you tie it to the fact that who are the people we treat as lepers, as outcasts? The challenge that I have is that's not where my head went as I was reading this gospel over the past couple of weeks. What I thought about was the fact that there were 10 lepers and only one came back to thank Jesus. And Jesus said, "Weren't there 10 of you? Where are the other 9? And the one that came back to thank him was a foreigner. He was a Samaritan. And so I wonder if maybe the other 9 just took for granted the fact that they were going to be healed. I wonder if they may not have been Jews who had leprosy, who were aware of the healing power that Jesus had, and they assumed they were going to be healed, and they left, they were healed, they didn't come back to thank him. And the Samaritan maybe not knowing Jesus' power, because I have to also believe that good things have happened to the Samaritan all along, but now he realized where the healing power was coming from, and so he took the opportunity to come back and to thank Jesus. And as human beings, isn't that what we always do? The good things that happen to us, we take for granted. Or we think that we're the ones that made it happen. And do we remember to thank God for things like a beautiful day, for a loving wife, for the fact that the weather might be a little cold, but God's blessed us, we're not in Miami? We take for granted, many of us take for granted the good things, the blessings that God has given us. And on the flip side, when something bad happens, who do we blame? We blame God. Why have you put this challenge in front of me? Don't you know I have enough to handle already? Why are you testing me? And so we blame God for the bad, and we may not take credit for the good, but are we thanking him? And so I have 2 assignments for everyone here today. The first one is easy, and you'll have it done before you leave church today. At communion time, whether you receive or you don't, there's an opportunity for some quiet reflection. And I ask that each of you take the time to thank God for the blessings that He's given you, for the fact that you're able to be here today, maybe for the meal that you had. And after you thank Him, then if you choose to, get your list out of all the things that you need help with. And as I say, that can be done before you leave church. The second one, maybe a little more difficult, maybe a little more embarrassing, is think about all of the people in your lives that you take for granted. When I got out of college and I had my first job, I moved into an apartment in Chicago. It was a 2-flat. And the good news is I lived above my grandmother, so I was able to help her and then have the apartment until I was to be married. So I had my first week of work and it was wonderful. And Saturday rolled around and I got out of bed to have breakfast and I opened the refrigerator door and it was empty. I always took for granted that the refrigerator was full. Well, guess what? Now it's my responsibility to fill the refrigerator. Not just for me, but for my family. The good news is I was able to go downstairs and see my grandmother, and I could eat with her anytime I felt like it. She was willing, just come down, I have plenty of food, and so it was always a good thing. But don't we sometimes take our parents for granted? My dad would get up for work every day, and he'd go to work, and he'd come back, and it would allow us to have that house that we had, or the refrigerator would be full. He would set the example. Do we take our children for granted? They're at school, they're working hard. Do we thank them for the fact that they are? Yeah, maybe it's what they're supposed to do, but acknowledging them, thanking them for what they do, it always helps. And it's not just family and friends, but it's coworkers. It's people that are around you. They should be thanked and acknowledged for the good things that they do. And as I say, it's not just necessarily one person to thank. There'll be many over the course of the next couple of weeks. I'll give you another example. We're always looking for someone to run the computer so that we have the screens lit up. And a number of weeks ago, my grandson, who lives in Greenleaf, was here with my daughter and son-in-law, and he said, I can do that. And so today, Zach is in the booth with Wayne, and he's learning to operate. And Zach's 12 years old. And they're here, and he came here with his mother and with his father. And so Sam and Nick, thanks for having an awesome son and giving me an awesome grandson. And Zach, I know you can hear me. Thanks for being there. I thank God every day that I'm here at Nativity to be with you as a faith congregation and as we journey together. I hope to never take that for granted, and I ask that God just continue to bless all of you on your journeys.